Morgan Township meeting, June 26, 2018. And if I can get a roll call, please.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
We are present.
Okay. Motion to approve the minutes.
Make a motion to approve the June 12th Morgan Township Board of Trustee minutes as written.
Second.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Motion to approve the warrants.
Make a motion to approve the warrants from 6/13/2018 through 6/26/2018. Warrant number 451-2018 through 488-2018. Warrant number 8620 through 8641 for a total of $57,743.33.
Quick question.
Yes.
8620, is that voided?
It's voided. That's the check that I had to give to Frank to set up the direct deposit for our new health insurance.
Okay. So make a correction on that 8621. See, it's right there. It's gonna be.
Okay, all right,
I just caught it.
all right. Correction, be warrant number 8621 through 8641, and the total still being $57,743.33.
Second.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right. Do we have anyone from the audience has anything tonight? If not, we will move up to you. Yes. If you come up, state your name at the mic, please. Address.
Name's Jeff Beckman, Premier Energy. Stopped in tonight. We supply you guys with propane for your buildings, and just didn't know if we could be a service as far as fuel oil or anything for any of the vehicles or anything like that. We're out of May Drive in Harrison, 111 May Drive is where our bulk plant is.
Is that
Okay.
Yeah.
okay?
We buy all of our propane from them. Jeff had stopped in and talked with me a couple, 3 weeks ago about the fuel, our diesel fuel, gasoline that we're buying. Right now we're buying it through Hightower, through the state purchasing program. He went over some prices on it and stuff.
Is it any better?
All depends what day it is. Some days it is, some days it's not.
Changes daily, sometimes twice a day. Rob said you guys buy from Hightower through Likens.
Yes.
Is that because funding or is the state?
Is it the
I
state
believe it was
bid?
state bids what got us
State
there.
purchasing, that's how we got started.
This is supposed to be the cheaper. It's not always, but it's supposed to be the cheaper.
Well, maybe I could just fire Rob some emails or texting or something daily, give him some prices that you guys compare.
Not opposed to that.
So are we under contract right now to stay with
We're not
the
under
current,
contract.
or are we free to
I don't believe we're
negotiate?
under contract. We're just purchasing through Hightower Petroleum, with Likens being the delivery portal. And Hightower is a minority company through the state of Ohio.
Okay, so you can buy from a day to day, you can buy from anybody you want to then?
Yeah, I mean, if I wanted today, I could call him tomorrow and say, come fill my tank. But, I mean, right now, we're on an automatic fill with Hightower.
Yeah.
So if we do something, we have to,
Let them know.
How big is your propane tank?
well, not the
This is-
propane tank we already buy from them.
Correct.
We buy $10,000 worth of propane pre-buy, and that's coming up here real soon.
August.
In August.
Yes.
The that, we buy at a summer rate to use through the winter time, and we're already doing that through Premier Energy.
Okay.
Cause we have 2,000 gallon, 1,000 gallon tank for the firehouse, 1,000 gallon tank for the, building here. We also have a 1,000 gallon tank here just for the generator, the backup generator for here. Now, obviously, we don't use that much propane out of that because it doesn't run all that much yet. And then we have a 1,000 gallon tank at the Shannon Firehouse, and we have a 500 gallon tank at the, community centers.
Can you buy 10,000 gallons of propane now at the summer rate for delivery in November or December?
Yes, you can.
What's different when you hit the winter pricing, what's the typical cost increase per gallon? Do you
It
have any
varies.
idea?
Well, like last winter, with the winter being as cold as what it was, and it stayed a little longer, I mean, it went up to, it's probably at least over $1 for what you guys locked in at.
$1 a gallon?
$1 per
More.
gallon, yes.
And we're buying 10,000 gallons?
10,000.
$10,000.
$10,000.
Dollars.
Okay, how many gallons would that be?
Depends on what the price is when
I
they
think it was
do
like
the summer price.
$1.73, $1.53, somewhere in there last year.
Something like that.
I was gonna say 63, so we're
I
all
know
right
it was-
there
I
in the
know it was
park
in
is
that
what it
range.
was. Depends on the
remember exactly.
gallons, you know, but, and then if you guys don't use all that, your money comes back as a credit.
Right.
There is some companies that don't do that, but we,
Yeah.
whatever that amount is, the whole amount comes back to you guys as a credit, and can be applied.
The previous winter, we didn't use near that much, and they credited that, and it just carried over to last year. Now, last year, we used all of our credit and then some, because
I
it
think,
was such
yeah.
a hard winter.
I think we've got about $200 left in our credit.
Is that what it is?
It's somewhere around there, yeah.
So if you fill up the tank and you only use half of it,
They don't
are you?
necessarily fill, I mean, 10,000 gallon, they don't fill everything at one time, Jeff. We get deliveries during the winter.
You're on.
What I'm thinking, if you fill it up, if you fill it up and you don't use it, I'm just trying to wonder where that credit comes from. If you get a credit on something that you don't use.
We
If you
prepay,
We'll just say this, if you
give
buy
them
100 gallons, you only
$10,000
use 50
at
of
the
it.
beginning of the year, or in August, you give them $10,000, and then every time they come and fill,
Oh,
they
I see.
deduct off
That's
the
your- that's your
$10,000.
pre-buy.
So then if they filled you, cause we get filled once a month, no matter, even in the winter when it wasn't that much, they still was here once a month to top off, so they're still deducting away from that $10,000 every month. But the winter before, they didn't have to top off as much, cause we didn't use as much. So that was the money that we'd already
got you.
given them, they already have it, it's just they carried it over to the next
got you.
year.
I got you.
And then that's when last year, we used all that money there and then some,
Okay.
so.
You've done a good job, that's why I let him speak.
So the price for gas and diesel fluctuates so much, there is no pre-bid or pre-buy?
We can do that, but a lot of times it seems to backfire. I mean, but some companies, you know, we can go ahead and lock you in for X amount of gallons for a time period, and it will not exceed a certain amount or go below a certain amount, you know, but when it goes below that, we never get the call if it goes above what you're gonna pay, but it's when it goes below that that people start. A lot of trucking companies do that if they're trying to bid a route. You know, they'll be like, we just need it, we wanna buy it under $3 a gallon because we're gonna make the money that we need to make. So it's easier with them. Usually, as a rule of thumb, I mean, as buying gallons like you guys do, that we can at least beat the pump price, you know, by a couple cents. Now, do you guys get your federal tax monies back? You apply for the credit on them?
no, because I have to go and look. There's some taxes that we don't get and then some that we do, because we are
Okay.
tax exempt.
Okay.
But no, we don't.
That could have something to do with the Hightower thing. I'm not that familiar with municipality buying through Hightower because they are a minority. Usually, like our excavating companies and stuff like that buy through Hightower, they have to buy through them because they have to have so much stuff that comes through a minority, purchased through minority. So that was the first one I talked to Rob about, all the different ones.
I think they were one of the ones that were awarded the state bid,
Correct.
and that's one of the reasons why we used it.
Because
Yeah.
we originally was buying all of our fuel oil when we first got our tanks from Lycans Oil. Well, actually, it was BP and Monroe, and then Lycans Oil bought them out. And that's how we ended up with Lycans. And then, I don't really know how we got involved with Hightower Petroleum, because I just remember one day that it was, I think it was not Connie, but Lila was like, Rob, what's this Hightower? And I have no idea, but somehow or another we got hooked in with Hightower, and come to find out, Lycans switched us to Hightower because of the minority thing, and we was purchasing through the state purchasing program, and that was the only way that Lycans could keep their hand in the pot was by going through Hightower, if that makes any sense. Lycans is still the deliverer,
Too
they're
much
still the ones that
politics.
deliver it,
It
but
is.
it's being billed through Hightowers.
Yeah.
So basically, Hightower's just sending all the paperwork out and collecting a percentage, and he doesn't have a fuel truck one.
He's running it through a minority.
They are a minority, and I mean, that's us. We'll bill Hightower, and then Hightower will send you guys a bill, and they put a percentage on it. That's why it seems,
So you said prices fluctuate daily, sometimes twice a day.
They
You
do,
said you
yes.
could email or text out the prices.
I can
mean,
do
if-
that.
If you do that and it looks like a good price, do you lock it in then when you order, or do you, like, if you get the delivery the next day and it goes up 10 cents?
we honor it.
Okay.
Yeah. Or most of the time, we keep track of it. You know, we'll have customers that will know that, or Rob would maybe call and say by Friday, or this week, you know, next week, we're gonna need our tanks full or something, watch it and try to maybe read a little bit of the future, but we still get the rack prices every morning, can look at it. And Monday, it went down 7 cents. For Tuesday, it makes 7 cents back plus another 2.5 cents. I can't, no really rhyme or reason to it.
I do know that Riley Township switched from Hightower to Jeff here 4 months ago, something like that, or?
Yeah, probably about 4 months ago.
So, I mean, it might be worth a phone call to the Riley trustees to see what they think about it or whatever, so.
All I can say is send him some information, we'll check it
Because,
out.
and Dennis just said a big thing back there is this past winter, we had such a hard winter, we didn't have a big issue with fuel gelling up on us, but a lot of other people did. Well, these guys put a fuel additive in their fuel where Lycans doesn't, unless you go and ask for it, and then they just bring you a jug and you have to go and figure out and pour it in your tank yourself.
All right, so all of our fuel is Country Mark fuel, Evansville, Indiana, North Vernon plant. All of our ingredients is injected into it as it's being put into the trucks. So other than just being splashed in and mixed up, it's actually injected in with the product as the trucks are being loaded. Comes back to our bulk plant, goes through a filtration, being put in and also being pumped out. So
I do know that's one of the reasons why Riley went with these guys is because they had some issues with trucks gelling fuel, so. Because their tanks are above, well, ours are above ground too, but they have smaller tanks, and I don't know what it was doing to them, but we got lucky, we didn't have it gelling up on us like they did, so. I don't know if it's because we have a double wall tank and theirs was only those single wall tanks or what, I don't know, but they was having a big issue with it.
I you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have anyone else from the audience tonight? If not, Mr. Marshall.
Well, the first one doesn't need anything anyway, but it does come up there. The first thing on my report today, Okeana Food Mart and the Marathon Station, that's all together, okay? I had gotten a telephone call, as I mentioned in the last meeting, from a contractor out of Indiana, and I'm gonna sign in, that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah. And I went to the Food Mart this past Friday and introduced myself and to ask some questions that Lieutenant Browning and I need for information in regards to adding the new fueling station, making it 3 stations, and then, of course, expanding the canopy over it. The manager at the time who was there was like, you know, just glare in his eyes as to what I was even talking about. And I finally managed to get out of him that there was, I wanted to speak to his boss. If he couldn't answer my questions, I needed to speak. So he gave me the name of a man whom I call Sam, okay? Because that's all he gave me, and then gave me the address. And yesterday morning, this morning I called Sam and conveyed the zoning needs in order to obtain certifications, certificates to complete the project. One is the footer construction, and 2 is the signs around the canopy, and the 3rd is a concern over the parking and how that will be distributed once the 3rd machine pump is in. Sam assured me that he would call all of the contractors involved and let them know that zoning certs are needed. As to how well I'm going to believe that, I know one has already called. As to whether the canopy people call, I do not know. The parking is on Sam, though, and I discussed that with him, and that he said he would further be working out on the parking issue. And Chief will address the fire issues in his report. Number 2 up on the item, if I ever get this thing up. The B3 parcels there, let me sign in, guys, that's the only way we're gonna get this going here. Wrong password. Not even in. Okay. Now, work on that, getting it up there. But the B3 parcels there on Sunside Brookville that the owner, Mr. Smith, had purchased through A2 Property Solutions, I've not received any further communications. The trailer is still there. However, I'm getting concerned over the growth that is now taking over the parcels, okay? The overgrowth that is taking on it. Okay. All right. Number 3, if you look in your packet, you'll see addendum, mark number 3. I received word from Ed Teets that 158.6 acres owned by Robert Mingus was placed into Three Valley Trust Conservancy last Friday. It's located on State Line Road, as you will see there on your packet, trustees, and everything. The orange markings that are there or is the entire parts of the package that I can conceive is been put under the Conservancy. I also learned through Ed that his brother Larry Mingus also did some parcels in Riley Township at the same time. Okay. Yeah. Good. And I'll show that to the group here. As soon as I find my mouse, it's trailing down. Geez, I think I'd be better off just giving up on this thing. Looking at the text setting.
There you go, Dale.
I just lost it. There it goes. All right. So that everyone can see, okay? That is the parcels that has been put into Conservancy as of the 22nd, I was told by Ed, and everything.
So what's the difference in the colors? What's the green?
The green is part of the tax issue piece. I clicked on one particular parcel of the
Okay.
group that was owned by Mr. Mingus.
And then you just color.
And that's just, and then I just colored in all of the rest of them. I had to go to each individual one to find out if those were the ones going in. And I'm assuming those are the ones going in because Ed had said they were all on State Line Road.
They're all A1.
Yep, all A1. All A1. I need to go down, I need to get out of that. Down to I may have to expand this a little bit. Number 4, the second quarter zoning certificates issued to date, that is number 4 in your packet of addendums. This is through today. I approved 2 today, one for an in-ground pool, and the other one for actually I approved 3 today. One for a extension of a porch in Okeana, on Okeana Drewersburg Road, and then they're going to be placing a roof over it, so, and everything else. But I'm working on trying to get the actual revenue that I'm taking in on it, and I'm still working to reconcile my numbers to Connie's numbers, okay? I'm not trying to fudge anything, but what I have in the report is that that certificates through today was $3,947.50. Okay, so you can see where Connie was saying in the budget meeting that the $4,000 was reached already, pretty much. The number.
So basically, you're building twice as many garages as there are new homes.
Right. So improvements along the way. Now, garages also include pole barns.
Pole barns, garages, yes,
Yeah.
all together.
Decks, I got calls for 3 swimming pools today alone and filled out one of them, and then there's 2 others to come in. There's another 2 new constructions that are pending. They haven't come in to do the certificates yet, and everything else. Connie and Connie received and passed it on to me a complaint about properties at 55253 Cincinnati Brookville. Now, this one you can't see because the complaint about it is that behind the house, the complaint came from a resident on Nicholas Lane. and it was concerning these two properties. You can't see because of the picture, I took these from the GIS, okay, just to have a reference place for them. But there is a pool, a above-ground pool behind this house, which if you look at any geo mapping or anything else, like your satellite pictures, it looks empty from what I see when I go to the map side of this side. Okay,
If that's the one that I looked at that they complained about, there is nothing in the pool.
right. Yeah,
It's just grown up all around.
All around it,
and
right.
I don't even think there's a liner in it.
No, you can clearly see in the satellite picture that there isn't a line. All right, number two is one that has been on the complaint list about 2 years ago, okay? 5263.
Yep. We
Cincinnati
sent them a
Road.
letter, and we sent them a letter, and they were,
They worked on it, they cleaned it up some, but it looks
It's
like it's
getting
going
worse.
back the wrong way again.
Right,
Actually, I talked to him, that's Mr. Rowland who lives there, and he's got some health issues, he does have some family, talked to him 2 weeks ago. And his neighbors have also, his neighbors on the main road there have filed. So when I spoke with him, I tried to understand exactly what the situation was. So he does have construction issues with the house that he needs to be having additional work done to the house, and he can't do that. So the only thing that we could possibly do with this, since he's not responding, is negotiate with him to say, if there are volunteers in the area that could help him with the house, just do some soffit work, could that be traded upon to help clean up the place, to remove the trash, to remove the bicycles? Because you must have 50 bicycles sitting outside. So he is, I know he comes, I know the area that he comes from, which is a tendency to have a lot of things around your house. So it's kind of in his makeup to have things around. So I don't think he's going to clean up voluntarily unless he's got a good reason. And I don't see any reason. I don't see any way we can force him to do it.
By the Ohio Revised Code, you can.
yep.
Well, I guess that's Dale's expertise. So where do we go?
Because
from
we
here
had
then?
sent them a letter once before, they did clean the place up, they didn't do it probably as much as they should have, but they did clean it up. Took them a little bit, she asked for extra time, because it was a woman that responded to the letter back, if I remember correctly.
I'll have to,
And they did clean it up, it took them a little bit, and I'm like, well, if they're cleaning it, let them
if
go.
they're
Right.
making
If they're making progress, I'm good with it. But they kinda went so far, and now it's going back to where it was before.
Who's out there on the right lawn mowing the yard the other day, don't have no information. But they've got kids, that was, I think, part of the original deal was they were gonna bring their kids over to help clean up for somebody.
But they did clean it up
a little bit, yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah.
So,
But as far as the pool is concerned, could that, on the neighbor's house?
Correct.
Could that be considered an issue?
that
of
and
public safety?
the obnoxious weeds that may be growing around it.
well, last time it wasn't,
There's not much I'll have to look to
because
see what
whatever the
state
bushes
laws.
was is not an noxious weed,
Yeah. Could be
but
just
it
regular.
doesn't even hold water, so you can't go there.
Yeah, because there's no liner in it.
Drains out. But
I don't even think there's a liner in it.
safety issue, the only thing that could be enforced is like what the state or the zoning requires for a fence around the pool. Since it's on private property, we can't do anything fire department wise, but I believe there's gotta be
That's-
some code, either state or something.
No,
that
we
any
have
type
it,
of
we have it
pool
here.
They,
has to
Above
have
ground.
some
We have it
kind
here.
of fence around it to keep.
actually,
Not above ground.
Not above ground.
Not
they,
above-
they removed that law about 2 or 3 years ago, because when I put my pool in, you had to have a fence.
Yep.
And I wanna say 2 or 3 years ago, that law has been revoked. There's no longer have to, or you're not even required to put a fence around your pool,
An in-ground, you're talking in-ground.
either or.
Yeah, the above ground's been a rule, you didn't have to have a fence 15 years ago when I put mine in.
Just when I put it in, if you had a door out the back of your house, there has to be a fence between that door and the pool, plus the pool has to be fenced off. Now, you don't even have to have that fence. because that came up on Bell Road with the pool, the people that are moving out, and the fence had actually fell in the pool. And that was a mess, and yeah, that rule's been revoked, and we can't even push that in. And I don't,
That's it.
yeah.
But Jeff, is to go back to what you were saying, that he needs work done, on his house and that, and I guess he
Yeah.
financially can't
I think
do it?
his wife, yeah, right, I think his
So-
wife works for a hospital, so she's gainfully employed. Don't know what he does.
I mean, there's avenues you can pursue with, like, I don't know how old he is, but there's Butler County, agencies that will help people that can't
Yeah, yeah, sure.
fix it. So maybe we could, offer that up, but, I think we've given them enough time. 2 years ago, we were down the same road, and we're back there. So we need to, I guess, start with sending the letter and.
Either that or go tell them they need to clean it up, or we start with the letter. At least give them the warning, which I'm for, go talk to them.
I don't mind, since I was down there 2 weeks ago, I don't mind stopping down and tell him that, maybe to give Tom his, offer him Tom's suggestion and tell him that we've had complaints that were filed, and ask him if there's anything that he could, or what's his plan to re-clean, since he knows it's happened before, it shouldn't come to as a surprise to him. So,
And you probably ought to
whatever
take-
you want to do, if you want to send him the letter, or ask him to stop up, or what,
You could,
Did you stop for the purpose of talking to him about his junk?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to introduce myself, and then I kind of eased into his situation, and then asked him about the house. So it was fairly cordial.
so what did you tell him exactly?
I asked him about the house, about what his situation was, what he could or what he couldn't do, and understood a little bit about his background. So that's why I came to the conclusion that these things obviously mean something to him that he has around the house. And to him, it's not the issue that it is to his neighbor. So I didn't want to go any further than that until I brought it back and had a little discussion about it, about what's been done, about what you want to do going forward, and what kind of options that we might have.
I was asked from the complainant, at least from the note I received from Connie, to at least try to get back with her as to see what kind of action we will be doing. And she wants that answer fairly quickly.
Is she the one who filed the complaint?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I have her name. I'm
There's
just
been
leaving it-
multiple complaints on
complaints
that
about
place.
that. Yes, I'm sure there has been. Just like there've been multiple complaints on the one on State Line Road and Shannon. They're still coming in.
Trimmed again.
The bushes have got to be trimmed again. Yep, I was thinking that when I drove by it the other day.
Well, since we're there, I asked the chief, they've got basically the township divided into quadrants, 4 quadrants. So we talked about this once before, if we could each one take a quadrant and just drive up and down the streets and look for, abandoned junk type cars that are visible from the street, in the parking lot, in the front yard, or not the parking lot, the driveway, the front yard, wherever. And if it's in the backyard, we can't see it, we're not gonna go for that. But we wanted to get this out. And I know you had discussions with Tim Trader for his property up on Bell Road.
Right,
We've got the 2 abandoned vehicles, or junk vehicles.
right,
And now the garage has collapsed.
yeah.
And
He's fighting with his insurance company on the garage, but I
you're not
have
gonna
to,
rebuild
I
that.
don't,
You're not gonna rebuild that.
they're not, no. Besides, this was supposedly happened during
Here,
one of the hurricanes.
hurricanes.
Yeah, he said his garage got,
When did we have a hurricane here?
The only thing we've had is
2008.
Hurricane Ike.
you know,
They won't rebuild it, but I would imagine they might have a settlement where he'll take the money, but nothing will be done to the structure, typically, how it goes.
It needs to be tore down.
Right, and he, because it's damaged the vehicle that was in there to begin with, it's also, and he said also in that conversation that, he was going to, he had the one accident, vehicle that
The
was there.
wrecked vehicle.
The wrecked vehicle, he thinks he has that sold or given away. The other, his other vehicle that's sitting there, he says it runs, but you never see it move.
I'd have to challenge him to start it.
Right.
It's been sitting there for 5 years.
Then there's
at
our
least.
mini storage facility that's still there on Bell Road.
Yep.
That's been there well over 120 days now.
Oh, yeah, it's at least 3 or 4 months.
I mean, all of these things, if, you know, I can address them and by, you know, getting a letter out to them that, you know, you're in violation, so I will start doing that if that's, unless you want to wait until after we've canvassed.
Well,
the
that's
whole-
why I was, pulled this up. I think, you know, do we want to just do one, compile a list and then work off that list? Or do we, because if we go after one and the next door neighbor, two properties down, has got the same situation, or that person, that homeowner that we're going after believes that that's the same situation,
Mhm.
and we haven't addressed it, there's an issue. They're
Right.
saying you're singling me out. So if we canvass the area, get a list, and then do like a mass campaign, then we may miss one or two, but at least we'll get the bulk of them. That if somebody does say, well, is so-and-so on the list? Yeah, they're on the list. That's my suggestion, but.
I agree. I think we could probably do stuff at the areas that we're getting complaints on.
Right.
Do it both at the same time. That way we've got it all covered.
So why
Well,
don't we set,
practically every quadrant has something in it, guys. I mean,
Oh, no doubt.
seriously. I mean, just right now, because in the southeast quadrant, there's Alert New London there in Shandon with the 2 vehicles that are sitting there that we've had before.
So-
Out in the southwest quadrant, of course, there's the State Line Road issue. There is in the Lehigh side of that, in the northwest quadrant there, just over past Chapel Road a little bit, maybe it's more the northeast, and then, of course, Bell Road in the northeast. I mean,
why don't we do this? I know Mrs. Marshall has also given us some different places and avenues. Did you get that on email? No, I need to send it to you as well. Put that on our website. Why don't we do Morgan Township summer cleanup? And we'll write these people's letters, but let's give them, let's say until either like the 1st of September, the end of September, before we start enforcing it. Do it as summer cleanup. That gives us time to keep writing all these letters. And hopefully some of these people will start cleaning up. Some of them are not. My only fear with this is with where our budget is. Because once we get to where we're gonna start enforcing this, it's gonna cost us money. And the budget is what worries me, and that's one of the reasons why I've kinda held off on this idea, seeing where we're at on that budget, because that makes me nervous, the money to spend to do it. Because some of these people aren't gonna do it, and then when the other people see that we're not gonna do it because of the money, what's to say any of them are gonna do it?
So how would you go down that road where you start spending money? What would you spend money on?
If you start enforcing it, then it comes to where we actually go in and clean it, have an outside source do it, we pay for that, then you put it on their taxes,
and then you wait for it to come
and
to
then,
you.
you know, if they're not paying their taxes, it might be 10 years before we get the money back.
Right.
You might get it at the end of the year,
But
you
according to
might
the-
not.
According to the ORC, can't we
In certain,
file a court action against them?
In certain situations,
Yeah.
it's a
Certain ones,
criminal,
yes.
in certain situations, it's a criminal act.
And
Remember
that costs
though,
money too.
But that
And that
costs
costs
money to
money,
start
we-
with.
we-
'Cause you have to
we've
file.
mowed several lots and we have yet to get the money back on them. There's
That's-
almost $1,000 out there where we mowed lots and
That's kind of my point. If they're paying their taxes, then we get it then. And we may have gotten it and don't even know it. Because you're only talking minor. And then, of course, the county's going to take their chunk of that. So if we spend 1,000, we'll probably only get 800 back. Because they're going to take their little part for doing it.
Cause I'm using the example as the old store, Payne's little store on the corner of Lehigh and Morgan Ross. We've mowed that 3 times, and as far as I know, we've never been paid for it.
And then when we mowed Okeana, we'll never get paid for that one because it went to sheriff's auction, and once it goes to there, it's wiped.
Right.
So we will not get paid back. So that money was on us.
Well, there's 2 of them in Okeana that happened to.
Yep. So that's a chance you take. So that's something else we need to think in moving forward. It's not where I want to be, but knowing where the money is, that plays a big part. And that's kind of why I've held, I was hoping was going to get the intern. Well, that fell through. Because I was hoping they would be able to start helping working on that. But then the money issues even more. Do I like doing it? Yeah. Do I like maybe putting these letters out and giving them, hopefully, some people will do it. But I'll guarantee some are not.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess the question is do you go forward and do that, knowing that? Because then once the other people see that you're not going after the ones that did, why should I do it if you're not gonna go after it?
Can you fine them? Is there any way of putting fines on these people? I'd rather see you do that.
How are you gonna get the money?
Well,
If they're not gonna
how
do
you
it, they're not gonna
get
pay
them
you.
to do anything, you gotta take them to court.
They end up leaning your property, but if you don't sell it, you may not sell, if you don't
That's
sell your property for 10
kinda where I'm
years,
going.
they'll lean and just sit
You,
there.
And then if
you
it goes
can't
to
get blood out of a term if there ain't blood in that term to begin with.
I would rather see you fine them than I would see you go out and spend $15,000 to clean up all the junk and stuff.
I guess the only way you could fine them is if it was in our zoning and it's
Well,
not in.
zoning people, let's get busy here and start writing the thing here. Cause I'm looking at, I'm like you, there's money issues here and
But that's gotta be set in place, and that's gotta be there before we can ever do anything like that, and then going to them, well, you can make these rules, how you gonna enforce those
I'm
rules?
just saying that I think we're setting a bad precedence here of going and cleaning up places and us paying for it and may not ever get paid back and stuff, and we're short on money, we can't pave roads like people want.
That's why I
And
said what I said.
So,
The word will get out too, that they're gonna clean it up, which is.
Well, yeah, I
They
mean-
cleaned it up. Have we looked at what other townships that have zoning are doing on this?
I can say honestly, I haven't.
I'm just wondering what, if
I have a little, but
Westchester does their own zoning, how are they enforcing it? Or
Oh,
the ones
they're-
that do
Well,
it,
they have
Chris?
several.
how are they?
Chris will tell you.
How are the other ones enforcing it?
It's Chris Schweitzer, Howard's Creek Road. In Fairfield Township, where I used to live, they sent letters, they arrived at your house, they banged on your doors, then they harassed the crap out of you. Like, literally.
then did they ever do anything?
No, they were at your house every single day banging on the door, wondering what you were gonna do. So eventually you did something.
So it was a harassment option.
Yeah, and then, the sheriff can't do anything about it because they're members of, X, Y, and Z.
The sheriff can't stop them from coming to your property harassing.
Right. And if you threaten them, then the sheriff comes, talks to me.
Or hauls you away?
No, we had a civil conversation. But, yeah, I mean, it's,
What kind of stuff were they going after?
I had one-
A camper?
I had one pickup truck in my driveway, that was in front of the garage. And they marked the tires so that they knew if I moved it or didn't. So I rolled it 4 feet up in the driveway. They marked the tires again. I rolled it 4 feet up in the driveway. They marked the tires again. Then I rolled it back to the garage door.
How did they mark the tires? With what?
Tire chalk.
All right, well, I just wonder if they were painting your tires or what.
No, they mark it. I mean, it's the same thing they do, like,
Was it licensed?
yeah. Yep.
See, now, if it's licensed and by the Ohio Revised Code, you can't.
And it's only one vehicle.
Well, but that's the thing though, is once we start down the pretty police road, someone is gonna have to go out there and hassle the crap out of people. Cause literally, that's how that stuff gets done. Whether it's legal, not legal, whatever.
And there's gonna be somebody that complains about everything.
Yeah. I mean, so, like, my experience has been really terrible with that, which is part of the reason I moved out here. You know, I mean, the neighbors across the street from me did the same thing. You know, we didn't live in one of those $900,000 houses, right? So we were like the ghetto of Fairfield Township, you know, and it was, oh yeah, it was terrible. But anyway, it's just constant. It's just constant harassment. Just constant harassment. You know, and I'm not a dirty person. Ain't like I got stuff scattered all over the place. You know what I mean? I got a pickup truck in the driveway that's in front of the garage. Because where we lived, everything that was in front of your house had to be behind the plane of your garage.
Also, this was not an inoperable.
Oh no.
This was a daily driver?
Well, yeah, I wasn't driving it because I was driving my regular car back and forth to work.
So it sounds like the idea is not to get the place cleaned up, it's to drive the people out. That's what it sounds like.
That's their plan. I'm going to tell you that straight up.
Yeah, we don't wanna go there.
Well, that's what I'm saying is once you start down the road of the pretty police, I mean, you're going to have to go the whole distance.
But there is a thing though that you as a property owner, you have a right to keep your property up. And if your neighbor is going and has junk all over the place and is making your place less valuable and is giving you an eyesore, I mean, everybody's got rights.
Sure. I mean,
But it's a fine line.
I'm not arguing with you, but we have to understand though, if we're going to make this step, you're going to have to make all the steps. I mean, that's the thing.
Another thing you're gonna run into is, you got somebody that lives next to a farm, I mean, how many farms have stuff sitting everywhere? You can't touch them, but you're gonna go to the neighbor and say they gotta clean their stuff up?
That's what I mentioned
Yeah.
when I brought all
But
the
the
Ohio
thing
Revised
is
Codes here.
farmers are exempt from it though. I mean,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
That's what, yeah.
so they can't even use that argument. I mean, yeah, you go down, you look at Hesselbrock's
But you gotta
dairy farm
understand,
down there, I mean.
When they live there, they don't care about the rules. They're like, well, wait a minute, you're coming at me
Most of your
here.
farms, though, your people aren't right next door to them. I mean, yeah, you drive by Hesselbrock's down here, and you drive by the home place and see all the stuff that's around there. I mean, but the big difference between most of your farms, they was here long before anybody moved in, and most of those that are a junk place were junk places for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
Now, you've got your nice places, and I can take you to a whole bunch of them. John and Jill Evans' place down here on 126, probably one of the prettiest farms you'll find in Morgan Township. Just a few miles up the road, the most nastiest farm you ever see.
I caution pretty much from the,
Who's would that be?
once,
Then we ain't going there, just shut up.
once,
No?
once we start, we're going to have to finish, which means either A, you're going to have to find more budget money, which means you're going to have to raise taxes on all of us. And I don't want that.
I mean,
that's,
They have to do that no matter
somehow
we do
or
this or
another,
not. I hate
I
to
mean,
say
somebody's
that.
gotta pay for
That's
itself
fine.
through fines. There's gotta be a way that you can enact fines to people not doing this. I mean, not doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, the people of Morgan Township, 1988, voted in zoning. You vote in zoning, you gotta police it, and that's the problem that, for a long time, they just let it on complaints. You gotta police if you're gonna have zoning. I mean, if you're not police it, then you need to, somebody needs to put up a referendum to have zoning repealed. But I'm not in favor of that. We need zoning, but also zoning's gotta have some teeth, and the thing that seems to have the teeth is finding people's pocketbooks.
I just pulled up Westchester. So Westchester has code enforcement. First line in, it says junk vehicles on private property. Unlicensed and/or inoperable vehicles stored on private property in Westchester Township may be considered a property maintenance issue. They should be reported by using the property maintenance concern form on this website or by calling their phone number. Anonymous complaints are not accepted. I like that. So you have to give your name, you make a complaint. We should probably call them tomorrow and say, what exactly do you do to fix this? Instead of us trying to create something from scratch, we should probably get an idea what other ones are doing. Not as much harassment as maybe saying, they book it, it's a fine, lien, whatever. But I can tell you in the lien process, they don't sell that house, you're never gonna get that one.
Right, yeah. If you remember, Mr. Payne, John Payne gave us all that material about that. He gave me some of the very things. He gave me Fairfield Township's letters that they send out and everything else, which is my intent to use those very directly, but with our verbiage to them, Jeff, and everything else. But again, it's how do you enforce it? What do you do to make them really get it done? That comes down to it. The state can give us all the rights it wants to, as a township, to go ahead and do this, but
If there's no funding mechanism.
there's no funding mechanism. It's like anything the state or the federal government does, you know? So,
Only good thing about finding is you're not out of money up front. So like cutting the grass, you're out because you gotta cut the grass. You send them a bond, you might not get it, but it's there. And if it compiles, and every month it's so much, and every month it's so much, maybe they'll get the point, or maybe they won't, and they don't sell it, but at least you're not out money up front for taking care of it, so that aspect of it.
But that may be something down the road, once we get that in the rules, or we come up with something like that. But I can't do anything if I ain't got nothing there that's already written,
Like
rules.
Like Chris said, as soon as you do it to me, well, you're complaining about a car that I plan on fixing for my son in 2 years. Well, they got something wrong with their yard, and now Danny's calling on you.
Oh, it does.
It's gonna snowball,
Trust me.
Like Danny said, or Chris said, it's,
But that's why I said, if you're gonna go after one, you gotta go after them all.
yeah, right.
You gotta do kinda like that sweep, and you gotta start somewhere, and then give them a grace period, and then say at this time, then we're gonna start
Like
coming after.
We talked,
I don't know
we
exactly.
talked several months ago, though, about sending an informational flyer, letter, what out to everybody in the township, sending it bulk mail, which doesn't cost you that much. You just have to go by when they have a slow day, if I'm correct, at the post office to send out bulk mail. But perhaps the beginning of it is to educate every resident in the township by sending out a letter saying, this is what junk property is considered, this is the ORC. In the months to come, the township will be out inspecting property. That way, everybody has it, you're sending them something informative, because again, there's no way, unless you fly a plane over here with a banner in the sky, you're gonna touch everybody. Versus going individually, somebody send out that information, it won't cost a lot. I think when we did the pamphlets for the levy, we were under $1,000, I think, and we paid postage, had them printed and posted to the houses that were registered voters. So if you go bulk, it's even, I think, cheaper, Connie. I think you get a lower bulk
It's been
rate.
too long since I worked at the
Yeah,
post office chief,
that
I don't know.
I mean, that's the quickest way to inform every citizen that there's rules here. We have zoning here. Just my opinion. You catch everybody.
See, I hear what you're saying, but I would say spend that money and go for the people, the properties that you find when you do your sweep. Because if you alert him and his property's pristine, now he knows, oh my God, I got this guy, and you're gonna get,
That could be
Yeah.
the domino effect back, yeah.
I'm just afraid that.
Well, and then here's the
start
other thing. It's the summertime, it's real green. you can't see my house from the road. So you don't know how much crap I got piled behind my barn.
Yeah, but behind your barn, I can't touch. That's even in the ORC. You can have a junk car, you can have an inoperable car.
But
If
the
you have
guy-
it fenced in, or you have it behind a building, and you can't see it, we ain't allowed to touch it.
But the guy
That's
behind
by
me,
the whole
which is kinda like what
Ohio
we're talking about
Revised
over
Code.
here. Well, with that pool's behind that house,
Yeah, but it's visible from Nicholas Lane,
It is visible from the other road.
the road.
The only problem is, there's nothing dangerous, there's not water, there's not a health issue with mosquitoes, it doesn't hold anything, it's just got overgrowth around it, but it's not noxious weeds, it's just, I don't know if it's bushes or what, but they look scruffy. But there wasn't anything you can grab that's in the ORC to say you ain't allowed to do that.
Sure.
I'm pushing it too far, but can the guy with the pool say, well, get in my backyard, you can't touch it, even though you can see it?
Ain't nothing, he's allowed to have what he's got, even though it's not operable. I mean, if he had Johnson grass growing out of it, now I can say, hey, you need to at least cut the grass.
Well, what if somebody's complaining because they're seeing a junk car in my backyard from the road behind me? Well, it's in my backyard, so you can't touch me, but now you're getting a complaint about a junk car.
I guess it's like what he said, is there a crossroad where I can be on the road and see it? Because then if I can see it, then it is, but then if you put a fence on both sides of it, I can't touch it.
There's a guy on Lehigh Road did just that. He built a privacy fence around two cars, so you
As
can't.
long as he gets a fence permit, we're good to go.
Yep.
Case closed.
I'll even allow him to turn it into a junkyard if you come in, pay the certificate fees for it, because he
Well,
can do that.
then once you go over so many cars, we're different rules.
Right.
But yeah,
so that brings me back to my original point is once we make the step, we're gonna have to take all the steps.
yes.
So,
Yeah.
and then have a funding mechanism to go with that, because I don't want it to be me
No.
or you or anybody else.
And I
Well,
think
so-
that funding mechanism will be the fines. You know, like you said, some people aren't gonna pay it, some people are. We take that money and we, you know, it doesn't go, it goes for, you know, enforcing this.
So,
Whether it be,
but, yeah, my experience has been less than positive, so much so that I
it's
bought
not
a
gonna
place
be-
out here.
You're not gonna be, you know, it's not gonna be,
For a lot of
Well
people, it
received.
is gonna be positive. I think I don't wanna be stupid about it. If it's in the ORC, it looks like crap, alright. But you can't park your car in front of your house, I don't want that. That's not the rules we want. If you got operable vehicles, but if it looks like a garbage dump, yeah, we need to go after it.
Well,
Does that make sense?
oh no, it makes perfect sense, and again, whatever you guys wanna do is, like I said, I'm cool with, but I wanna make sure everybody understands that once we start, the creep is gonna occur. So 15 years from now, or 25 years from now, when I'm coming up here, and you're complaining about my car in the driveway, right, cause it's gonna creep. If we start, we're gonna creep all the way through there, cause that's how it happens everywhere. I mean, I'll wheelchair my butt right back up here, and be complaining again,
50 years I won't be here.
50 years,
Well,
I won't be here.
or 25 years, or whatever.
We won't be here, we don't care, Chris.
Well, I do, which means I wanna make sure that we get this right the first time.
Well, that's kind
So-
of why I said what I said.
I mean, like I said,
If we're gonna do it right. I don't wanna just start jumping, but I think maybe there's rules and things that we need to get in place to work it to do it right.
and the funding mechanism.
Well, the rules are there. They're stuck in two articles. One is 20, and the other one is 21, what the BZA can enforce, okay? As you can see, this is, I have to, these are my duties, okay, that I do. And then there comes to fees, and then zoning certificates. What I can or can't do there. But it is in the enforcement pieces. Let me get down there. Okay, violations and if someone violates, like, a situation that we had on Southside Brookville, you know, and everything. Then I have, as you see, the reference to the ORCs there and everything. The right
Well,
to-
violation would be anything.
Anything,
that
junk cars,
goes
anything, right.
against our zoning resolution.
Right.
So if we got it in our zoning resolution, then that covers it.
Then you see, it says, supplemented thereto adopted by the Board of Township Trustees of Morgan. It also says about the fact that not only can the administrator do that as zoning, so can the Board of Trustees, okay? I mean, the support of it, that's all I'm asking, you know, if you read,
And then if you going down that route, you've got to assign like a fee schedule.
right,
So you know that it's, for a car, it's $100 or whatever. And then just like that states, every day that that violation is in effect,
right.
the fee compounds.
I actually had that in Coleraine on my trail, so it was every day, or every month, there was another $500. So they make you take care of it. And I mean, $100 too, is like, I've got $100.
Did you have to settle that claim?
Well, it went as far as court, and then we brought myself and the neighbor next to me, and then we kind of squashed it. And then ultimately got a variance, and then had to do X, Y, and Z within that year to keep the variance. Went back, paid the money to get another variance, and they didn't give it to me. So I just
Okay.
moved out here. More or less, I mean, but same deal, it was a 2010 trailer, it wasn't a junk trailer, it wasn't, you know. But they had those, it was, okay, I had court paperwork, to go to court, so that would have made me probably get a lawyer and spend money in that avenue, and then also, after every day that it wasn't moved, per month, it was X amount of dollars.
Brett, what action was taken with Turtle and Man that got them compliant?
They got them what?
To be compliant, they cleaned up their property. What action was taken that got them moving?
I'm trying to remember, because that actually happened before me.
Well, I know with Turtle, is one of the reasons why Ed was successful with Turtle is because the price of scrap went sky high.
Right,
So when he started scrapping all of his junk cars and everything up there, he was making a fortune, so he was laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah, he
Him
was
and Ed got
making
to be
more than
real
what they're
good
worth.
buddies Because he told Ed, because I'd have never made all that money had you not given me those.
Because weren't we sending
Violations,
them
so-
letters? I thought we
Yeah,
were
it's like,
sending.
Ed sent him multiple letters to clean up, and
Well, when you have multiple cars, I know that's considered a junkyard and considered this, and then it wasn't,
I mean, he had
And the
stuff all
proper-
over that whole hillside, but,
yes.
I mean,
And Man also.
it was Madman the same way, but then Madman also, the thing that helped with Madman is Madman was to the point where he was needing money to pay bills, and so he was cleaning up to scrap the money, and then he was trying to avoid fines, because I think there was some fines that were put forth on him, and to keep from having to pay those fines, he cleaned the property up, and then he eventually sold it. So that was the ultimate cleanup, is when Madman sold the place, everything got cleaned up. All the
You got anything?
neighbors.
Teresa, you got anything?
Yes. You know, first and foremost, let people know, all they have to do is either get online, fill out that form, or make that phone call. That tow truck will be there, pick it up for them, no expense to them. Those companies that I gave you, some on will then turn around and send them a letter of donation, dollar amount.
list of them.
Huh?
I said, yeah, there's a list of them.
Yeah. And just letting people know that, hey, this is the phone number, you wanna get rid of these cards, whether they run or not, they want them.
I'd like to see that put on the website, just as a reference, and then,
Or even, you know, maybe even like a little 2 cents worth that I put in there, sorry about it, but
it's fine.
have a day or something like that for these people to come. If they have the VIN number or whatever, someone available here to sit down on the computer, fill it out for them. Then the company contacts them and says, hey, what's the best day for us to come out and get these cars? They take RVs, boats, and cars. The only thing they want in operable condition are farm tractors. They want those in operable condition. Otherwise than that, RVs, boats, cars, trucks.
I don't think too many people give the farm tractors away.
No, you save them for parts.
I'm on the down for you.
Seriously. That's why I didn't even put that in there, you know?
Yeah.
If it's operable, it's being used.
I have a question. Do we need to be careful about putting names like that on our website, because then it looks like we're endorsing that company, and whether or not it's good, if something happens, they're gonna come back and say, well, you said they were all right, you put it on the website. I'm just asking, is that a concern we need to have?
If you put a disclaimer at the bottom, we are not, trying to think how you just said, we're not endorsing these companies, these are just some of the ones that we have found that you could possibly use
On websites.
on the website. And that way, we're not endorsing them, but here's some things we found.
Humanity. Those two are very well known. Now, the other two that I put on there, Cars for Kids, they're the ones that's taken to Butler Tech or other, community schools for, maintenance reasons.
All right, so what's your guys' thoughts on this? We think about this, we move forward?
Well, one down on Cincinnati Brookville, it sounds like Dale, the person that complained wants some kind of action, what we're gonna do, right?
I would be in favor of sending a letter with a citing a fine for inability or inaction to clean up, just like our friend was saying about he got a fine letter or he got a fine. I don't know what the mechanism would be to collect it, whether you go to court or that is it. From what I can see, that's the only way you're gonna move somebody to do a cleanup project.
Right, well, for me, I didn't wanna spend the money for a lawyer and stuff, so you go back to Updike, and now we're paying for lawyer fees and paperwork and all that stuff, so.
So it's, someone's gonna say, okay, I don't wanna go to court, I don't even wanna enter into that arena, so I'll clean up, whatever I can do to clean up, at least they're making an effort. We get a little satisfaction, or a little accomplished.
Well, the only problem with the fine is it's gonna have to be in a document before you can ever even say
Yeah,
that
we have to
and
have
do
that
that.
in
Because
zoning.
it has to be in zoning, that has to be approved. We're looking at at least a couple months to even, if they did it right away. If you see where I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I can't fine them for something I ain't got in
We
writing.
don't have a
That's what
schedule.
I'm looking for
We
right
don't
now.
have like,
We don't have a scale.
yeah, we need something that says this is, the fine is associated
You know,
to
'cause
this, whether it's a car.
And then it's gotta be brought to the public, and it's gotta be approved by Butler County and everything else. There's a due process. So I can't just say, here's the fine, this is what we're gonna do. It's gotta go through all that before I can do it.
And then I just heard in the audience out there the word grandfathered.
Well, we can ask. Then we could either send them a letter that you need to do it, but I can't fine them, because there's nothing in here that says it's fines.
Well, then I would make a motion to have zoning start down that road to create a mechanism, if it takes a year or whatever,
to put this out for the next people who try to run the township and say, you know, at least they got something to try to rectify a problem.
That's
I
what we
think
did.
they're
We
already
did
in
that.
that
That's-
process.
So you-
That's why we
so-
had the,
okay.
that's why we put everything on hold. We did have letters out there, and we put them all, everything on hold right now, until we get the zoning resolution
Finished.
finished and.
So that's,
So finding,
are we, what,
we
Well,
can
what
go
I'm
to the
it sounds
OR,
like we're already going down there.
we can do a letter through the RC, and I cannot remember the number right at this, for the junk cars, and we can tell them that they need to do it.
We've got it in.
But I can't find them, because we don't have that done.
505.173, storage of junk motor vehicles.
Yes, and I'm glad you got it, because I've got it in my book thing, which I can't find, because I cleaned everything up and it's hidden.
And what is provided there is except, no resolution shall restrict the operation of a scrap metal processing facility. Whoopee, we don't have that. We actually do have a junkyard, but it's fully licensed to be here
Yes.
and everything else, and complies to all of the regulations around junkyards that are in there.
But is there anything in there that gives you an option to levy a fine?
Okay.
Not to
No
my knowledge.
resolution shall prevent a person from storing or keeping, or restrict a person in the method of storing or keeping any collectors, and we'll get there, with the permission. And it does go on and tell you what you can do, the removal of. If the junk vehicle is located on public property, the Board of Trustees may provide the resolution for immediate removal. If the junk motor is located on private property, the Board of Trustees may provide in the resolution for the removal of the vehicles not sooner than 14 days after the board serves written notice of its intention to remove or cause the removal of the vehicle on the owner of the land and any holders of liens of record on the land. The notice provided under this division shall generally describe the vehicle to be removed, gives you that. As any expenses the board incurs in removing or causing the removal may be entered upon the tax duplicate and become a lien upon the land from the date of entry. Okay. It says the board should serve notice under the division by sending it by certified mail. And this is Article 505.81871, Carol. Okay.
Yeah, send it regular and certified both.
Mail, right, regular and certified, which is what I would do anyway, and everything. If the owner resides in the unincorporated territory of the township, or if the owner resides outside of the incorporated territory of the township, and the owner's address is known as ascertainable through an exercise of reasonable diligence, the board shall also send a notice in such manner to any holders of liens of record.
And which house are we talking about at the present moment? The one on Cincinnati Brookville?
No, I think it's probably, which,
The
Or the
State
Bell
Line
Road.
Road, State Line Road, or Bell Road.
Bell Road would be the junk vehicle.
Which one did you get the complaint on, in Cincinnati Brookville?
Yeah,
Which
Cincinnati
one, the
Brookville's.
pool or the,
Both.
both of them?
The pool is 5253. The junk stuff is 5263. That's why you had the two pictures.
Right, and if I'm not mistaken, we can't use the junk car on this one. I'm trying to remember if they have one or not. And then I believe it's the other one with the
The
debris. It's the
debris
same
and
one that
stuff like that,
falls
which I don't
underneath the
have.
noxious weeds is the only one you
Yeah,
can.
which I don't have.
And I have it, but it's in my bag. Pay up
Yep.
front for what?
The township,
well, that's what we were thinking is
Well, that-
in this, we want to schedule a fine per a certain date of action on the township that says we start down that road. It's $100 a week until you remove this.
all expenses incurred in removing or causing the removal of a junk motor vehicle when approved by the board shall be paid out of the township general fund from monies not otherwise appropriated.
So that comes back to us paying to remove it.
Right.
That's what I said
Except-
before.
Yeah, except that if the expenses exceed $500, the board may borrow monies from a financial institution to pay the expenses in whole or in part.
That's why I said what I said earlier, that could get costly.
I don't think we want to remove it. We are going to put pressure on the homeowner or the property owner to remove it. Like, in the case on Bell Road, Tim Trader doesn't live there, but he rents the house. So we're not going after the tenant, we're going after the
owner.
landowner. But you just keep, not like as aggressive as you're saying, we harass, but we keep sending letters and a fine that's associated with, until it gets to where it's an amount where it gets their attention.
Yeah. I mean, it lists, there's several things that the board does, and then it also lists several things that the physical officer would do if you go beyond that, not getting the money. And you actually do junk it yourself. And that is to fill out in triplicate, the fiscal officer for the Board of Township Trustees. I was trying to say it correctly. Describing the junk motor vehicle and the manner executes in triplicate an affidavit prescribed by the Registrar of Motor Vehicles describing the junk motor vehicle and the manner of removal or disposal, and certifying that all requirements of this section and notice and record search requirements of section of the revised code have been satisfied. And it gives a revised code now. Okay. I don't think Connie wants to do that, right?
No, she does not.
Well, Dale, can you give Westchester a call and just see if they may have a fee schedule or how they're doing it?
I'll talk with Bruce from Hanover too. I know they've had to do it a few times.
Okay. Let's move on.
All right, Dale, you got anything else?
No, sir. Executive session, if we have one on the Susan Schulteis matter.
Okay. All right, Mr. Brown.
First thing is just to let you know a little bit what we're doing. We're doing some cut and repair on Chapel Road, also on Lehigh Road. We got a good start today on Chapel Road doing the cut and repairs in some places where the road is breaking up, and we got a few more we're gonna do tomorrow on Chapel Road, and then we're gonna move to Lehigh. Mowed all the roadsides for the second time. Thanks to Daniel from Triple D, we fixed some problems we was having with the arm mower, so we're gonna get started trimming trees in between some of our other projects. And we had some repairs done on the backhoe, on the air conditioner. I didn't finish that sentence all
I was
the way
kind
out
of
there.
wondering what that was. Repairs.
But that was, had some repairs done to the air conditioning on the backhoe, so again, thanks to Daniel for fixing that for me. And then, the last thing is on the Church Street. I understand there was some discussion last meeting and it was kind of tabled or whatever until I was back here. Had some conversations with the county engineer's office today. They are working on all the paperwork for us to go to the different property owners to try to get the work agreements, the easements, all that sort of stuff. Once I have all that paperwork in place, then I will try to get with all the property owners to see if I can get them to donate all of this property to us.
Okay.
If they won't, then we will discuss the other avenues that are needed to go there. Also, on one of the properties, on the John Fagley property, John Fagley easement, there are 2 trees that are gonna have to be taken out. And that's something I'm gonna have to tread real lightly on, because I don't know how he's gonna take that of trees being removed. They're on his property right now, and I need to make sure that I tread lightly on that, so that might be an issue where.
Are they right in the way of where the pipe's gonna go, or the?
One of the trees is right in the way where the head wall for the new pipe is gonna be, is literally right where the head wall's gotta go. So that one definitely has to go, and the other one, I'm not for sure quite why they're wanting to take it out, but it's shown on the plans as coming out. I do know one of them, and I don't know if it's the one where the head wall is, or the other one that's got a utility pole that's right next to it. That utility pole has to be moved. But in any case, I'm waiting on all this to come back. Down at the Okeana Drewsburg end of Church Street, the right-of-way is about 8 foot off the current pavement. 8 foot back is the edge of the right-of-way. The closer you get to 126, it comes in closer, tighter to the road, only like 4, maybe 5 feet once you get up towards 126 off. So that means that ditch is going back onto private property, coming from, or up at 126. So when it comes down 126, it's all on private property until it's, and then it comes in closer to Church Street as it gets there. So that helped me to know where I'm looking at, and all of that is up on the David Witzelbarker parcel, which is the farm field. So basically, a lot of the ditch there is all in the road right away. It's just the back side of it, and that's why they want to have the easements and stuff, the extra 10 foot of easements, so they can dress the back side of the ditches. Because like where all the pipe's gonna be, we can pretty much keep that all on the existing right of way, but it's the back part that's giving them problems, and then getting some work agreements, so when you put all that in and stuff, because we are
Will the head
putting in
wall
a.
be on the existing?
Pardon?
Is the head wall on the existing, or is it going?
No, it's gonna be on the new.
Private.
It's gonna be on private property
Yeah.
if we don't get that.
Gotcha.
The other thing is, the current pipe is right against the edge of the road. We're wanting to move that back, that way you don't have that steep drop off
On the edge of the road.
at the edge of the road. So that.
Which makes it safer.
So that's, once I get all this paperwork and stuff, then what my plan is once we get all this together, and I might have this as early as next week, I would like to schedule a meeting with the engineer's office and all, Jeff, the 3 trustees and myself, sit down, whether we have it here or whether we go to the engineer's office. I think I can get them to come here, but sit down and have a meeting, go over all this stuff, go over all the plans, everything, so everybody is
On the same
all on
page.
the same page. And I believe we can make this happen this year. If we can get everybody all on the same page, work with the property owners down there, and get it all in place. And the reason why I'm going to ask these property owners to give us this, to give the right of way and the work agreements, just sign them and stuff so we get it, is that it will, once this project is done, it'll be our responsibility to maintain it, not theirs. Where if it was done on private property, which still could possibly do it that way, it would be done on, they would have to be the ones to maintain it. So that's what the county engineer's office and myself both are trying to hope that happens, is because we're not talking a lot of money for the right of way. I mean, they're not gonna be able to go out and buy a new car or whatever with this. I mean, it's just minute money. And it's $200 per property owner really is all they're saying the fair market values.
If you excavate 8 foot off the edge of the road, I'm thinking in front of John Fagley's house. If you excavate excavate 8 foot back across the street from his house towards his workshop back there, and then you dress that out another 10 foot, you're gonna come pretty close to his outbuilding there, won't you?
Well, yeah, but the majority of, by his building there, that's gonna be piped, so that'll all be covered up. It's not gonna affect him
Won't be a
there. I
ditch.
mean,
There'll be no, but
we won't have any ditches there because from the, John Fagley's is property number 1,
so if we're just gonna have.
Cameron's property 2, and Witzelbacher's property 3. Mainly Witzelbacher's is the only one that's gonna have the back ditches, and that'll be getting out into his field a little bit, so he might cry foul there, which I've already talked with engineers. We can go, instead of having it the 3-to-1 slope, we can make it a 2-to-1 slope and pull it in some to keep him pacified, but most of Cameron's and most of John Fagley's is gonna be piped, so they're gonna have smooth, they're not gonna have any
Be
ditches.
level, basically.
They're gonna be level with the
So
pavement.
do you really need do you need the extra right of way on those two
Because of moving the
properties
pipe back and then,
then? Oh, okay.
and to get it away from the road, that's the main reason.
And when the head
that
wall's
way,
on their
where the pipe
property.
starts, instead of it being right up against the road, it's gonna be back.
What happens if that tree is not, doesn't come down? Can we still do the project if that tree stays?
It'd have to be some serious finagling, or the pipe would probably have to be put at more of a skew and a longer pipe put in, is the way I'm gathering.
Are you talking the one?
See
that's
too,
where that
also,
wall
if
was?
that head wall's on his right of way, or his property and not on our right of way, he can go ahead and destroy that later, and we can't do a thing about it, cause that's on his property.
That's correct.
So you don't want that.
So, and this is just some stuff that I'd like to, I mean, I don't know how we can go about this. Well, there's some things that I'd like to discuss with you, but I don't think discussing matters with a private individual should be done in a public meeting, so I guess is what I'm saying. Cause it's some negotiation stuff, and I don't think that's right or fair to that person to discuss that in the public meetings.
Well, to do this in the fall, we got a window here to get a couple things done. When do we bust out of the window where we can't get that done this fall?
I say if we don't have everything signed and stuff by the end of August, 1st of September, we're probably not gonna get it done.
That late, we can go that
I
late.
think we can go that way. The engineer's
Well, we
office
can
might
ask
be,
them.
we'll ask them in that meeting, and I'm hoping that meeting can happen sometime in the next week. Cause I talked with a gentleman by the name of Mark Goodman today, and he's getting real close to having all the paperwork together, finalized all the drawings and stuff, and getting me a full-size set of plans instead of these little things here that you gotta have a microscope to look at, so.
Okay, so that's your meeting. Your meeting will take place with him first, and then are you
Well,
recommending?
no, I'm saying that whole meeting will take place with all of us, all at the same time. We'll all get together and go over these plans and stuff, so it's all,
Do
everybody.
you wanna propose you wanna make a proposal on when you wanna shoot for that meeting? You wanna throw a dart against the calendar and say, hey, the third week in July?
We're waiting on them to have everything ready. Soon as they're saying they're ready, we will make a date and get together.
He's saying that possibly could be this week, but most likely next week. And that's what I'm saying, is sometime I guess next week's not gonna work, it'll be on the 4th of July, but probably the following week, trying to get a meeting together to make it happen.
Okay.
Or whenever you're ready, see when they can meet, and if we can all be there, we'll be there.
Right.
I'll be out that week.
The week of 4th or the following week?
Both.
Okay.
But that's fine, you can catch me up.
Okay.
Don't hold it up on my account.
The other thing is the salt contract for 2018-19 has been signed.
Price is?
Unit price is $68.48 per ton for piler, $62.98 per ton for dump. So the price is $62.98.
It went down.
That's what it's gonna cost us per ton for as I've always have, is 650 tons. That way, if we use what's in the barn, and, you know, if we have one of them bad winters or whatever, like we did that one winter, I'm still covered, because my barn is full right now, I don't have to buy anything. So I was telling Connie that I don't think I have to buy any salt till after the first of the year, because my barn is full, and that should get me from the start of the winter season, end of November, 1st of December, that should get me through to the first year, so it should be after the first year before I actually have to buy salt, because my barn is full right now.
Okay.
And Rob, I wanted to thank you for coming out on Howard Road and looking at that tree and advising that Hamilton County takes care of trees on Howard Road on the north side.
Right.
So they've taken care of that tree, and the homeowner now wants an arborist to come out and look at that tree to see if it's substantially infested with ants or bugs, and so Hamilton County's gonna do that for us.
Okay,
So thanks.
good deal.
That was something he did before he went on vacation, and I had a phone call from a gentleman that had dead branches hanging over the road, and he wanted immediate assistance to try to clean it up.
And it was on Hamilton County's part of Howard Road, west of Howard's Creek, because we've got the part between Race Lane and Howard's Creek, but once you get on the west side, then the road goes into Hamilton County. But this gentleman lived in Morgan Township, and that's why he called. So I went up and met Jeff there, and I had some contacts at the Hamilton County Engineer's office, and it worked out. So
Thanks.
Anything else?
that's all I have.
Do you have any kind of schedule or any plans on when you're gonna start this collaboration with Riley Township? Is that on the schedule anytime?
I don't have an actual scheduled yet.
I didn't know,
Because-
we're gonna do something this summer, right?
We're looking probably be in August, because Riley's got culverts they're having to do, and we're doing our cut and rebasin. And some of it is like part of Lehigh Road from Weaver Road to the bottom of the hill. That's some of it that I wanna chip seal. And we do have, we was working with the distributor, 2 weeks ago before I went on vacation and before Steve went on vacation last week. We just filled it with water and was practicing with it, but we found some air leaks, and there's gaskets in between these air proportioner valves that are bad. They're only like $5 a piece, but it's gonna take some time to get all the tar off of them, take them apart, put the new gaskets on and put them back. And we're just hoping that that takes care of the problems, because these air proportioners are $162 a piece. They're only about that big, and they got 2 wires to them, but there's 12 to each section. I mean, basically it'd be about $2,000 to replace all of them if we have to replace them. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I hope it's just putting them new gaskets in there, and maybe a couple O-rings in some other places, because we got a pretty substantial air leak that you can only go so long, and then the air tank drives out, and your valves won't work and stuff because the air leaked out. So that's just some of the things of buying a used truck are just little minor things, but hopefully it's just, so I've got Steve working on that in between doing our cut and rebasin, and he tore it apart Monday and found out what we needed, went and seen about the parts, got the parts coming. So next, we're gonna work on the cut and rebasin tomorrow, but if it rains or whatever, he'll work on the other side, getting it tore apart, so we'll get that all together. But I'm saying you're probably not gonna see none of that happen until sometime in August.
All right. Anything else for Ron? Nope. Mr. Galloway?
Okay, first thing, the left side of your packets, the Township, I believe I mentioned this last meeting, I just want to clarify tonight. The Cincinnati Alliance presentation that we postponed, that's been rescheduled for the July 24th meeting. So for your calendars, it'll be at 7 o'clock. It's not a workshop, it'll be at the regular meeting. Number two, just to kind of reiterate what Dale said, Lieutenant Browning he went through the fire code book the other day, and 20 pages of the fire code relate to putting in new fuel pumps and extending canopies on existing gas stations. With that, he highlighted probably, I'd say, at least half of the 20 pages of what things the contractor needs to do that is, quote, it goes with fire code. With that being said, he's on duty tomorrow, and he's going to go down there and inform Sam of these regulations that they must follow. And the thing that again is, he tried to with Dale, and I made sure that Lieutenant Browning understands this as well. Tried to push it off on the subcontractors to do this. No, this is the owner that's doing the works, has to do these fire codes and zoning things, not the subcontractors. So they'll be down there tomorrow visiting him. Number three, just an update. I went down Monday. This is becoming a rather unique thing. Every Monday, you go down on Hamilton Scipio and see what addresses above and below ODOT's going to shut the road, because they just give you a random east of California or whatever. So I went down Monday and got the addresses for this week. The gentleman informed me that when this culvert is done this Friday, they're going to stop work. They're not going to work next week because of July 4th. They're going to leave the road open to Brookville and to the lake and all that. And from that point on, they can no longer go east on Hamilton Scipio, because they're going to start to impede 732, which is where they're running all the detours from 27 through Riley. So they're going to go work on other projects around the county and come back and finish that at a later date once 27 is done. So we're having probably at least 2 to 3 people a day come in the fire station. I know they've come in here to Connie too, lost, trying to figure out how to get to Oxford. They're all turning around with all these detours. So yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess. So they're not, that once they're done this Friday, they're going to stop until further notice on Hamilton Scipio. So, it's, yeah.
Well, if you come up from out of Millville, there's like 3 different detours.
Yeah.
And
Which way do you go?
Yeah.
Yep. Which way do you go? So that's the administrative report for this. And again, the mention about the intern, really can't do much with Dr. Russo until that the fall semester kicks back in. They go back to school August 30th. So sometime in August, 1st of September, we'll talk about that fall semester intern again. So on the report on the fire side, number one, and it's in your packet underneath the thing, is to accept the resignation of firefighter EMT Cameron Marshall effective June 22nd, 2018.
Second.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Number two, we formed the committee, and we're going to start, the committee's going to start to write an RFP for the replacement of the tanker. We talked about that. We're just waiting on Vogelpool's letter to pretty much say that it's permanently terminal, the pump. And again, it's going to be one of those, how far along do we get in the process and order a truck before we have to spend $5,000 for a possible bandage to repack the pump, rebuild the pump for possibly only making it for another year. So we're just waiting on kind of that letter to back up why we're going out for the replacement of it basically 2 years early. Number three, we kind of had the budget hearing. I just wanted to kind of go over a little bit of the 2019 capital budget items. Again, we talked about the replacement of the tanker. We've done some preliminary research. We're looking in that window of between 250 to 300. We think we can get it down to about 275. Ross did one in 2012, which we went and looked at last week. And in 2012, they got a really nice basic tanker that has everything on it for about $215. So you go with the economy from 2012 to 2018-19, we're figuring it's probably going to be somewhere closer about the 250 range. Second is the potential buying of the 800 megahertz radio. So this is just getting interesting by the day. I was at 2 meetings yesterday about them again. Currently, the projection for the existing radios we have are going to work till 2020. However, there's now a debate, a strong debate within the county and the sheriff on the departments buying Kenwoods. And we think that if entities buy Kenwoods, we're going to be charged to be put on the system, or some other fees are going to be stuck on us. So I did a preliminary today. At today's cost, if we were to buy the new Motorola's, we'd be looking at about $88,000. So with that being said, we kind of set off $100,000 in the 19 budget, but hopefully we won't have to do that until the 2020. But that's kind of where we didn't want to get caught in that budget. The C is replacement upgrades of our existing extrication equipment. So we have Genesis tools. They're basically 20 years old. We learned the other day, we learned a couple months ago at FDIC that they really have a life expectancy of 15 years. So we talked to I can't think of the Hal Rescue that does the Genesis out of Kettering, where they're actually made. They're actually made and built in Kettering. And we need new cutters because the cutters are so old with today's metals and cars. But the spreaders and the rams can be rebuilt the ceilings, rebuild a lot of the stuff. So August 17th event, the Hal Rescue's coming out and telling us what we need to what we can rebuild and what cutters we're going to need for the future vehicles. So we'll know that will not be. I don't think that's going to be a capital item, but we didn't really budget that because we had the money in there for small engine repairs and equipment like that. So we didn't really put that in there, but that's just in there.
Could that be something we apply for through, like, is it Butler Roll, or which one we get the grant from?
Well, we apply for numerous grants. We apply for the AFG grant. We apply for the Butler Rule, which the Butler Rule is about $5,000 if you can get the Butler Rule. There's also the state grant for small townships under 25,000 residents. The problem is we're under 25,000 residents, but our budget, our funding mechanisms are kind of high, so we get thrown out. Usually not state grant every year. We just got tossed out of it last month again because the budget we have versus the population, we're like here. So there's a couple other avenues that we can look at, but Butler will be one of them. I mean, yeah, because the cutters alone are going to probably be about $5,000 for the cutters themselves. So we can look at that absolutely. And D, the addition to the station, again, we didn't know at the time. We talked about it in budget hearing if we put that bond in there or the guesstimated payments for a year. We didn't know how to do that, but that's going to roll over, obviously, into the 19 budget. So those are kind of the capital upgrade projects that were built in there in just a little bit more detail than we did in the budget hearing today. Last, number 4, we've set the date for the open house. It'll be September 22nd, which is a Saturday, 11 to 4. So again, we'll be looking for help and volunteers from the folks that come out every year. And that'll be the week prior to Fire Prevention Week. So that's all I have. I have a quick personnel executive session, and that's all I got.
Can you give us an update on the architects?
Oh, absolutely. So I met with 2 this week. Mike Carroll, I cannot remember what firm he's from. And then I met with 2 other individuals from a firm out of Middletown last week. Both are very, very good firms. They are enthusiastic about the work. Kind of got we gave them rough copies of what we're looking at. They thought, easily an easy project for them. They like to do smaller projects for townships than building, $5-6 million Taj Mahal type of fire stations. So they were very enthusiastic about it. We're just waiting for their stuff to come back. I talked to a gentleman today who called last week, and I think he's going to back out because he feels that even though it's a small project, that his fee is going to be more than $50,000. And, you know, that's the threshold of interviewing, so he kind of backed out and kind of said, I'm like, okay, you know, that's your. The fourth one that called me, which is kind of another unique, is Robert Traden. And Mr. Traden actually drew the original plans for the original station. And he was researching back in hand-drawn files, because in '93 they didn't have PDF files of this building. He called me 2 weeks ago to make, and he said, I'll call you back, I'm going to make an appointment for this week. For last week to come out and go over it, because he wanted to bid on it too, since he had already done the original. Never heard from him, called the number today, and it's disconnected, which I think is odd, because the business has been his architect firm's been in business for 30 years. So I'm kind of, whether their phone lines got disconnected, they are moving, because they're down on Hamilton across from the government center. So I'm going to keep pursuing that, but I tried to call him today to make an appointment and just make sure he was still coming out, and he had the set of plans, and the phone's disconnected.
So do we actually need 3 to interview?
So, yes, according to Jack Grove. According to the gentleman today, and he's with his 50,000 threshold, and he's quoted me back to that same manual, the Ohio facilities thing. You really don't. But if you think about it, and Connie and I talked about this today, if you think about it, we've actually already interviewed one.
Right. Okay.
We've already interviewed the CDF or whatever, that one, Mark Shoemaker. So we already interviewed him, and no, we're not going to go that route. So the other two will definitely be here to bid. They're both, y'all have a tough decision, because they're both pretty darn equal. So I don't know what we're going to, at the end of the day. Now, this gentleman today that said his fees are going to be over 50,000 said, well, if you go on to the Ohio facilities website and all, there's a sample on there of what questions you should ask in interview. So I'm like, I'll do that. So it might give us a basic question to ask at the interview of the two that are definitely going to come in. So, and with that, Rob, I talked to Rob, because we're trying to close a loop here. Dwayne, Accurate Carpentry, sent apparently, but we don't know where it went, because we think he's got a bad email address for Rob. And he sent it again just a few minutes ago, and Rob doesn't have it yet, so I think he has a bad email, the estimate for doing the doors at the community center. So I told him, just send it to me, and he says, I've already left the office for the night, so we'll get that back and get that to Rob. But I think they've got a bad email address for Rob. So just to follow up on that other part as we're getting into construction. So that's where we're at on the architects. 2 really good ones, but one firm is out of Middletown. I think the other firm is somewhere in Butler County as well. So that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And also tell Mr. Marshall, thank you for his time and service.
Just to let you, just to finalize.
That what happened there is Cameron went to volunteer status last November, and even if you go to volunteer status, we still have mandates where we have to keep our licenses and our certifications up. And Cameron works nights and has a life, and he admitted to us, I don't have the time. And he fell behind on his live fire burns, which he couldn't go into a fire anymore. He fell behind on taking the protocol test to act as an EMT, and I think it was a mutual agreement that he said, in his letter, he just says, I don't have the time. I just flat don't have the time. And that's, we understand that, and even working midnight shift is even worse. So that's kind of how Cameron, went. But I think Cameron, if I remember right, is pushing about 8 years with the department. So close to 10, so.
There's no bridges burned.
Oh, no, not of it. And I think, if he goes to day shift or something turns around, absolutely, he's welcome back for sure.
I remember when he started.
Jeff, his number was 65-2018.
Okay, Ms. Reinhardt.
The first thing I have, I need you to approve the reappropriation of the purchase price of the roller, the stainless steel dump body, and the tar truck to take it from general fund to road department funds. So the money comes from road department, not general fund.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Motion carried. Next is I need a PO to Highland Group for the first and the last installment on the FRAP insurance for our firefighters. This was something that you did under, I'm thinking maybe under Joe 3 years ago, back in 16. It's coverage for the firefighters to help them with
It's actually, we learned today, because.
accident and health coverage, that's what I'm trying to.
Accident and health coverage, but it also has a provision in there, which we didn't know, because we hadn't really seen the actual outline of it, is it has kind of like an Aflac type of thing, so if you go on work comp and you need that subsidy, the extra, this one's kind of like that program. It's got all kinds of different benefit packages for if you're injured, off the job, on the job. It's got a lot of stuff in there that was negotiated, I think, a couple of years ago by Ed and Joe.
It was done in 16, yes.
We looked at it again today. We had Carrie send it again today, and
Give an
it's
amount?
got a lot of
Yeah,
benefits to it.
5625. Sorry, I forgot to put that in.
$5,600 a year.
5625.
So this cost had already been in our budget, and this 56 is near that amount. You're just kind of updating us on
Yep,
it, on a
yep.
coverage change.
Yeah, so basically, we went with a 3-year installment of $5,600 each year, so this is just the last of the 3 years of the PO that you did for the last of the 3 installment.
Gotcha.
We'll have to go back next year and then renegotiate it again.
Okay, motion made.
Second.
Mr. Kolb?
Yes.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Motion carried. I need 2 POs from Melvin Stone, one for $5,000 and one for $3,500 for Stone for road repairs.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Kolb?
Yes.
Motion carried. Need a PO to Strasser Construction, which is the parent company for Terry Industries, for $5,000 for emulsion for road repairs.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Kolb?
Yes.
Motion carried. And the last one is a PO to Beamer's Piggyback Sales and Service for $1148.92 for additions that we had to put onto the stainless steel dump bed. If you have questions about that, Rob can answer those better than I can.
What additions were those,
Or-
Rob?
The warning lights that are on the bed. I guess he forgot to add that to the original proposal. And he could have just went and put the original lights back on it, but they was just the yellow strobe that would be flashed in our mirror all the time. So I asked him to go and give us front-facing, they're not strobes, they're LEDs. Front straight facing, green, yellow, that are facing the front, green, yellow facing the back, up high and back in the back to make it more lit up so we can see better from the behind. That way if we do have to use it in snow and ice, but this truck mainly is gonna be our Durapatching truck, but it is also our backup snowplow. So I wanted to have a better warning system on it for the lights. And then also, I had them make me a chute that goes permanently on the back, and then a cover that goes over that chute. And the chute is for the Durapatcher when we're using it, that's made into the bed. And then the cover to put over it, so if we wanna haul blacktop with it, we can, or if we wanna haul regular gravel and stuff, we put this cover over top of that chute, so that chute doesn't get filled up with asphalt or big rocks, get in it and bang it up and
Gotcha.
hurt it, so.
And what was the cost of that?
$1,148.92.
Okay, motion made.
Second.
Mr. Kolb?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Motion carried. That's really all I have, just to remind you to check your mailbox in the trustee's office.
And then just on the POs that I asked Connie to make up is, I know I said August, but I mean, if we can get to it quicker and get everything lined up and Riley get ready, we'll go quicker, but that's one of the things, is I've already got the stone set back there. The emulsion biggest thing is I'm waiting on, Riley's got a bunch of culverts they have to get in. They gotta do them first before they can start the chip sealings.
I know you like doing it too when it's hotter. It does better.
It actually does, yeah.
I meant
It's hotter
it-
both places, but it actually.
sets better, it does better.
I'm sure
it-
you use the air conditioner in that distributor truck.
Oh, my God.
Ouch.
Ouch. All right, anything else, Connie?
No, that was it.
Hey, Rob.
All right,
One
Mr.
quick thing, with what Chief said about Dwayne calling you about an estimate with the doors, for the doors for the community center. Once you know an idea, or got an idea, like what doors you're putting in, see if we can get that, to Chris or somebody to, make sure we can get a price on putting the electronic,
Door
pads, door locks on. Just, it's easier to do it with the, door
Framing
frames
it
and
out.
everything out. So, that's one thing we're looking at doing. Okay.
Mr. Cole,
Nothing tonight.
Mr. Brockman.
I think I've had enough already.
Only thing I'll say is if you guys want me to, I will go down and talk to the lady here on Cincinnati Brookville and the gentleman and see if they'll, I'll remind them of the letter we did once before and see if they'll start cleaning it up where we don't have to go through the whole process. Can't hurt.
All right.
Are you guys all right with that?
I'm fine with that.
And then if they don't, then we come back and go from there.
Okay.
Other than that,
We need executive.
make a motion to go to executive session at 8:58.
Second.
Mr. Updike?
Well, for personnel reasons and what else? Personnel and.
Zoning.
And zoning. Yeah, I knew there was another one. I'll leave a second.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
We're adjourned to executive.
I gotta hit. Let me get the tape off.
Try and get this budget stuff done while you guys are.
Okay, we're back on.
What was the number? 67?
Alright. I'll make a motion at 9:56 to come out of executive session.
Second.
Okay.
Second.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Mr. Kolb?
Yes.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
We were back in session.
I'd like to make an amendment to proposal, resolution, I'm sorry, 67-2018. It's the PO for Highland Group for the third of the and last installment of our FRAP insurance for firefighters. The amount stated was $5,626, and it should be.
It was stated as
Oh,
25.
I'm sorry, it was stated as 5,625, and it should be 5,626.
Second.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Kolb?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Brucker?
Yes.
Mr. Kolb?
Yes.
Mr. Updike?
Yes.
We are adjourned.